Hi everybody, and welcome to another video of the channel. This time around I bring to the table something quite special, quite unique to me. And the cause for this is the following. Today marks exactly 1 year since I started sharing videos on YouTube. So on August 1st, 2020, I put out my first video, and at the time it was a Hot Toys, the T700 Hot Toys figure, and it all just, expanded from there. So to celebrate the occasion, I thought I'd bring something quite special, quite unique, as I said before, but only to me. So instead of finding, the priciest thing I have in the collection, instead of, showing you, top budget figures or sceneries or, dioramas or vehicles or whatever, I chose to bring you the toys I had when I was a child. So these don't amount to many this day and age. Back then, things were quite different when I was growing up, and basically we had toys twice a year on our birthday and for Christmas. So I've managed to get my hands on 37 of these original Kenner figures. Each and every single one of these has got a story, and I hope to tell you a little bit about them, not in depth. I don't want this video to have 2 hours or nothing like that, but basically that's about it, you guys. So as you can see here, most of these figures are from the later part of the first trilogy. Growing up in the 80s, I got in contact with the franchise actually through the action figures. So I remember being about 7 or 8 maybe, and just watching old Kenner commercials that joined footage of the films with actual footage of the toys. I remember specifically a commercial in which they recreated the Ender chase with the speeder bikes on a dining room, and the legs of the table and the legs of the chair were the trees, and there was, I don't know, 1 or 2 kids that actually recreated the chase with the bikes, and that was so amazing, so absolutely amazing. And that's how I actually came in contact with this franchise, so beloved franchise, which is Star Wars. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick these randomly and just start talking about these for a while. So as far as Ender goes, we've got over here Princess Leia and her combat poncho. So pretty outstanding figure for the time. She's got a removable helmet. She's got the tiniest blaster in the original Kenner line. This is quite often lost. And she's got the soft goods poncho. This figure particularly also has a characteristic. In the lists, sometimes vehicles came with small lists which folded upon themselves, and they had these, pictures of the whole collection, the figures and the vehicles and the all those things. And what happened is that this figure came without her poncho, without her soft goods poncho. So what actually happened was that I was given another one of these, one that nowadays I can say I can actually regret having swapped it, but I did exchange it for a couple of other vintage figures that I didn't have when I was growing up. So as I told you, so this would be the first one that I would comment upon. Okay, so Princess Leia on her Endor poncho. Okay, another one. Okay, since we're talking about Ender, is the Ender Rebel Trooper. Okay, yes. Okay, I neglected to talk about this characteristic on Princess Leia, but all of these figures, not all, but most of these figures have only got 5 points of articulation, the classical 5 points of articulation, okay, legs, arms, and head. And they've got, in some cases, their backpacks molded onto their backs, okay? So if we compare these to G.I. Joes, these usually were attachable. They had a hole on their backs, so they were attachable. But in terms of sculpting, these are quite nice, actually. So this is a generic Rebel Trooper. The names were much more generic back then. They kind of, you know, mentioned a species, not an individual, and these were generic soldiers. So the weapon it comes with, it's got this flimsy part to it, quite easily breakable. So it's a miracle that this thing survived. By the way, let me tell you how these survived. They survived being encased in, you know, marmalade containers, plastic marmalade containers, and they were in my parents' basement for, well, from the time when I turned into a teenager, and I didn't really give them too much thought at the time, and they withstood the test of time, some better than others. And finally, when I moved to this house, I decided to bring them along, okay? So that's pretty much it. So the Endor Rebel Soldier, here we go. Right, so what else? Yeah, one of my favorites, all-time favorites. Yes, the original Yoda. Yeah, okay, so it's funny because I showed this to my baby girl, who is 3.5 years old, and she immediately said, "Baby Yoda!" Yeah, actually not Baby Yoda, but the real deal, the genuine, the original Yoda, complete with soft goods, his original cane, you know, all crooked. And there have been some, you know, different versions of this figure along the year. I find this one particularly, you know, yeah, awesome. It's these mean a lot to me because they're the toys I played with when I was growing up, when I was a kid, when in my preteen years. So it's you know, just the amount of recollections that I have is because I actually played with these. So long before I hailed myself as a collector, I was just, you know, a kid playing with toys. And I know I had toys previous to Star Wars action figures, but I don't really have any memory of those, so they certainly have not made a significant impact. But these did. Okay, the soft goods on this is absolutely amazing. I know there are some versions which have orange snake instead of the brown one. This is with the brown snake. Here we go, Yoda. Yeah, okay. Well, what next? This is somewhat of a mystery to me. Now, we're going to the last 17. Back in the day, this was called Yakface. Well, quite frankly, because his face resembles that of a yak, if yaks had faces instead of snouts. As I was saying, this is the 93rd figure in the line that actually ended in 92 in the States. That being said, there is a high demand for this figure, particularly in the US, because it was never released there. So these are quite pricey right now. And the mystery to me is that it actually came with this gaffy stick, with this staff, the same as the Tuscan Raider. So whenever I search in a reference book or online, it comes with one of these staffs, the one that Nikto has, and not one of those. Well, or it could come with no weapon at all, no accessory at all, just like this. But mine came with this staff, which was strange. I must have been sort of a mistake or whatever. Okay, but here we go, Yakface. Okay, Yeah, only later, when I would believe 1997 or 1998, when there was this re-release of the original trilogy, did these characters, were these characters given actual names, Silt Marak, whatever his name is nowadays, okay, still Yakface to me, okay, so I must confess that being one of the latest figures that I had, it's one of the least played with, because back then teenage was kicking in, and I was starting to lose interest in the collection. And once again, if I had a time traveling machine, I remember going to Vigo and going to one of the hypermarkets there and just, searching for action figures, and I only saw these guys, okay, 1, 2, 3 of them, and it was just so frustrating because I was looking for different ones and I only had the same one over and over and over again. And what is more, this is one of those characters that is usually said that if you blink or if you turn your head during the Return of the Jedi, you're probably going to miss him. So had I known that these would become so, pricey, valuable, I would have picked the lot up. Okay, so that is the next one. Okay, so who's next? We got the Bwing fighter pilot. Once again, generic pilot. Once again, it came with a different weapon from the one which is usually associated with this figure, which is the Leia blaster, the mini, the mini blaster over there. Okay, and what is more, it came with this strange color, this blue, almost metallic blue. Yeah, okay, so Bwing fighter pilot. Okay, once again, generic pilot. Loads of creases on his jumpsuit, which make up for a lot of detail. Yeah, good figure there. Right, another one of the last 17, Lando as a general. Okay, so the years have not been kind to his cape. It's kind of, not exactly in the best of conditions, color-wise. It must have gotten some, wetness to it or whatever, okay, yeah. Okay, all in all, a terrific figure too. If we fold the cape behind him, you can hardly notice the stains. Here we go, Lando, General Gear. Okay, Tuscan Raider. Now, these figures, some of them came with these vinyl capes that are notoriously easy to rip. So what is interesting for me is, with the years, it has become whitened. It was much yellower than it is right now. Okay, its head is almost white, and I actually remember it being much more yellow, more or less the tone of the cape. And what is interesting for me in this figure is that the way his hands are molded, because due to the lack of articulation, it's quite difficult, not to say impossible, to get these figures to hold their accessories with both hands. But considering the fact that his hands are molded like this, he can actually hold his gaffy stick in a horizontal or vertical position, okay? Or you can just choose to have him hold his gaffy stick with one hand. More of a gangster look. That is, if he held on to it, which he's not going to, making me look bad on YouTube. Right, okay. So, as I was telling you, it's very, very hard to maintain these vinyl capes because they are so flimsy. It's so easily lost, easily torn, okay? Got the Tuscan Raider over here. Talking about vinyl capes, we've got none other than Vader himself. Yeah, once again, intact cape. And the gimmick that the gentleman at Kenner, devised for this particular figure was to hollow out his right arm and, so he could hold his extendable lightsaber. Now, so you can see it still has a saber tip, okay? Were this lightsaber to be a telescoping lightsaber, this, narrower part, were it to extend further, and I would be looking at quite an expensive figure too. Rafa, can you help me out? What's the year on Vader's leg, please, pal? I think it's 77 or 78. 77. Yeah, okay. So when this guy came out, I was 2 years old. Yeah, oh no, come on. I tilted the lightsaber tip. Yeah. It didn't break, but barely. Okay, on to the next one. Then we've got a bounty hunter. We've got Dengar. Okay, Dengar. Okay, another one of those figures that appeared on Empire, and that you could only see him on screen for a couple of seconds. Okay, once again, the backpack molded onto his back. He comes with this rifle. Okay, yeah. Okay. Later on, I found out from a comic. I don't know if it's canon or not right now, but I found out from a comic that his face had been bears some scars because of a race he made with Han Solo and lost. So there was this accident in which he was injured. So I'm willing to say that is why he has this need to search for the Millennium Falcon. Right, so another one of the last 17, R2-D2 pop-up lightsaber. Okay, so the gimmick with this figure was that in its interior, it held, yes, you've guessed it by now, the lightsaber. The thing is that if you compare it to Luke's original lightsaber, you will notice that it is quite different in length, in width. Yeah, it's because the original R2-D2 could not accommodate a blade such as the one that came with Luke, the original one. Yeah, okay, so once you put the lightsaber on his dome, you're supposed to turn the dome, and there's a gimmick that, lifts the saber up a little bit. You will notice that most of the chrome has gone because of the motion of turning it around, but still quite a hard figure to get your hands on these days. Light pop-up lightsaber, that's it. Okay, so since we're talking about heroes, on to Luke with his soft goods cape, his green lightsaber, and the gun he manages to take from one of Jabba the Hutt's guards on his palace. Yeah, okay. Right, okay, so another one, we've got Lobot. Yeah, so it's interesting to see that nowadays on Bad Batch, one of the clones wears a device much like the one worn by Lobot on Cloud Bespin City. Okay, so this guy is Lando's lieutenant, shall we call it? Okay, first aid, whatever. Okay, right. So another interesting thing is when you watch not IG-88 but IG-11 in action in a live action movie series, in this case in The Mandalorian, because we had only seen it very briefly on the Executor on Empire. So I know on Clone Wars we have seen robots such as this. IG-86, I believe, in action, but those were animated. So watching a character such as this one in action in a real life series was quite an amazing experiment, right? So they were very intelligent when they devised the Mandalorian. Okay, so another one of my first figures of Imperial Trooper. Okay, so complete with his vinyl cape too, slightly yellowing to the body, which is quite common on these white figures. Later on, I plan to shoot a video where I tell you how to turn these back to white, okay, if the sun helps. Now on to Ewoks. So I've managed to get my hands on 4 of these little things back in the day. Now I must say that my Kenner vintage collection has grown quite exponentially nowadays. I don't have them all, but I have most of them. But back then, these were seen as somewhat childish. So I remember back in '83 when adults were looking at this part of Return of the Jedi and they were thinking, oh, this is no plausible life form. So these, aren't exactly plausible life forms. So for 8-year-old, they were perfectly plausible. So that's when in 1999 people were criticizing Jar Jar Binks and the Gungans and kids were loving them. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we've got Chief Chirpa, complete with his staff. Logray, the medicine man. Yes, okay, right. Witch doctor, right. We've got Tebow, yes, who has recently had a version of him made for 6-inch. I have that version too. And Paplu. He's had another version of him made for the 6-inch line in the collection. What's it called? Heroes of Endor, I believe. It comes with a speeder bike, Han, Luke, and Leia, and an exclusive Paplu. Yes, I've already shown this one too. Hoth Leia. Yeah, another one which has been made into 6-inch. Yes, back in the day, this guy was called Squid Face. Yeah. Don't need to be overly imaginative to understand why. So this was one of the figures I most enjoyed in the line because it came with all these soft goods, okay? So it came with a handgun, these 3-fingered hands with these huge fingers. Yeah, that's wonderful, okay? Later on, he would be called Tessek. Yeah, that's it. Right. Here we go. Could you move these over there, please, pal? Now, Zucus, later to be called Forlome. Okay, so an android, yes, who shares 3PO's body, although he does have an insect-like head, and he's got an exclusive weapon, probably my favorite rifle in the vintage collection. It is just so awesome. Doesn't hold it too well though. It's hard for him to get his grip on this gun. Yeah, here we go. Right. Hoth Rebel Trooper. Okay, another one. Yep. Okay. These 3, I'm going to show them as a set. Yes, because they are from left to right. Klaatu, Barada, and Nikto. Okay, these are 3 of Jabba's henchmen, and their names are a tribute that George Lucas made to the film, the classic sci-fi classic, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Okay, so Klaatu comes with his soft goods and his staff. Barada, one of the last 17, hard figure to get nowadays, and Nikto. I really enjoy the color scheme on this one, okay? And talking about enjoying figures, yes, what is to say about the Gamorrean Guard, complete with his vibro axe? I mean, this is just an awesome sculpt. Yes, the piggish, porcine creatures that guarded Jabba the Hutt. Absolutely amazing. Okay, this mold would later be used for Friar Tuck in the Robin Hood toy line from Kenner too. Yes, Weequay, another one of Jabba's henchmen, another figure to hold his staff with both hands because of the way they are molded. Yes, one of them like this and the other like this. Yes, Weequay. These were also colorful back then. Right, Bib Fortuna. We're all waiting for this figure to come out in the 6-inch line. Yes, okay. Bib Fortuna. Jabba's Major Domo. Yes, 88 droid. Another white droid. Starting to turn yellow. 2-1B medical droid. Absolutely impossible to stab with these tiny feet. That's why I use this G.I. Joe stand to help him stand. Seen on Empire. Yes, when Luke is in his bacta tank after being attacked by the Wampa. Yes, a Man, another one of the last 17. This is probably from the last 17 my favorite figure because it's so original. His hugely out of proportion arms related to his legs and the staff with the skulls. This is just so, yes, amazing. Right, talk about evil incarnated, the Emperor Palpatine. So this figure has a story. Growing up, there was only one accessory I lost, and that actually was the Emperor's cane. Later on, I was fortunate enough to buy another Emperor, and it came with a cane, which I automatically replaced, but this one is my original one, the one I played with. And when we're talking about the Emperor, let's talk a little bit about this guy over here. Imperial Dignitary. So, yeah, this is one of those figures that it's quite pricey nowadays, but I really didn't know what to do with it back then. It wasn't seen in the original trilogy. It's one of those, last 17. Okay, Reese, another one of those creatures you could see in Jabba's palace. Then we've got Chewie, of course, another 1977 figure. Yeah, one of his feet is much bigger than the other. Yep. Imperial Commander. Okay, all black with a blue blaster. I did not know why it didn't come with a black blaster back then, and I still don't know now. And then we had finally Prune Face. Yes, that's what he was called back then. I know it's not politically correct, but he was called that because his face is all pruny, is all wrinkled. It comes with this tiny, weapon. Yep, sorry. Here we go. You can hold it on his shoulder, and then the soft goods cloak so he could hide. So as you can see, many of the original characters were missing from my collection back then. They aren't missing now. Right, I hope you guys have enjoyed me showing you my original Kenner figures. I hope to see you guys soon. Bye-bye, take care, stay safe, stay strong.